Okay. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the special meeting of the Peabody Conservation Commission. On board tonight are Mike Rizzo, Vice Chairman, Amanda Green, Commissioner, Bruce Comack, Commissioner, Arthur Athis, Commissioner. We will be seeing members of the Salem Country Club in a bit. There was, Lucia had sent out a notice to Barry regarding the procedures in this meeting. And basically, everybody on the Salem Country Club will become appointed as a panelist at the appropriate time. The first thing I want to do is have our peer review, DeRosa Associates, give a presentation, and then we can discuss amongst ourselves issues that are there that are missing, and then we can call upon the Salem Country Club to address all those. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So with that, can we begin with Mike DeRosa?
I guess why don't I start with our peer review letter, Stuart,
Okay.
and then that'll identify sort of the pieces that are missing in the final restoration plan, and
Okay.
then which aren't many. Most of the things have been addressed, and then we can go to your spreadsheet and we can go point by point through the enforcement order, the second amendment. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Or do you want to start with yours? Yeah. Okay.
No, it's like, I just want to get it so we address everything in some orderly fashion.
All right.
Let's go through
our letter first. And I'll screen share. Yeah. All right. So this is our peer review letter dated July 10th. It basically goes through the final restoration plan submitted by Keegan Werlin LLP, the club. Brief list of comments, recommended actions to be taken by PCC. And basically, after review of the final restoration plan is completed this time with the most up-to-date information on what we have been done and what still needs to be done. Since there's still portions of the restoration plan that haven't been submitted, and this is what I alluded to earlier, we recommend that the Peabody Conservation Commission request that the title of the document be revised so it's not referenced final, because it really isn't final until we get these other missing pieces, which I'll go through in a minute. But maybe something like interim restoration plan or proposed restoration plan, something like that. But we think that, we don't want to mislead the commission or the public saying that this is the final plan if it isn't yet. It's a technical thing, but I think it's worth stating.
Yep.
Page 4, the final restoration plan states Salem Country Club's forester has recommended the shrub plantings in area A through L should occur in the fall of 2023. The locations of these will be selected to supplement the new trees and successional understory growth. We recommend that the commission vote to amend the enforcement order, so this would be the third amendment, to state that the final restoration plan complete with the species, locations, and quantities, and that's important. Locations and quantities of each shrub planted in areas A through L be submitted for review. So in other words, and it doesn't have to be specifically where each shrub's going to go, but at least the numbers of shrubs within each of A through L area should be designated. not just a blanketed list. Page 15 of the final restoration plan is the list of proposed shrub species. We recommend that this page be updated with proposed quantities and locations. So that could be, the numbers of different shrubs within the A through L area. I think that would be adequate for that. Page 4 of the final restoration plan states that the locations of the planted trees and managed shrubs and buffer zones A through L will be geolocated. And we totally agree with that. We recommend that the country club update the restoration plan to also state that the addition of the geolocations, each tree tag is represented on the as-built figures. So we have a reference with the plan as well. In each planted shrub with a similar tagging system. So then we can monitor or the shrubs can be monitored over the course of the 5-year period. And those shrubs don't have to have the same aluminum tag system as the trees do, but we think it should be something that's repeatable, that we can go back 2 or 3 years from now and check those tags and see which plants are making it, which plants may not be making it, so that they can come up with a metric for their 75% survivorship.
Can I offer something on that?
Absolutely, yeah.
We discussed that there's 4 species of shrubs to be planted along the pond, and that there's a total of 25 of each species, so that total is 100. And the recommendation was to get a plastic tag just to wrap around the bush and have it numbered 1 through 100. And
Right.
there is a current spreadsheet that lists the various species with a number 1 through 100. And if that matches out, then that's all you need to put on the drawing is which shrub by number and a key, and we'll be able to figure it out. Plus, you'll be able to find them again by
exactly.
number.
Yeah,
Exactly. If number 20, if number 32 is dead, you know what it was. So,
and that spreadsheet that got put together would be perfect for the monitoring elements of this, so that
right.
each shrub and each tree is identified, and its status can be monitored over the 5-year period. So it's all set up for the club to do that.
Okay.
So number 4 is Exhibit E of the final plan, shows the numbered system for the metal tree tags. We recommend the commission requests that this exhibit be updated to show the corresponding hole number for each tree number. This can be updated and submitted along with the final plans by November 30th. 7 is of the final restoration plan, areas that can be seeded and maintained. This is the pollinator habitat issue, and we don't really, and the commission doesn't have yet a sense of where those areas are. Bill, Rocco, and I have, while we were driving around doing the tree inspections, we're locating a few spots. One is obviously the area where the Japanese hops was removed. The other one was along the 14th fairway. And then we also talked about the area between the 16th fairway. There's some areas there. So the club may have other areas too that they're thinking of. And that would be, it just needs to be on that master plan that shows where everything is. So those are our comments as far as things missing, and it's really, and we can go through the spreadsheet now, Stuart, which identifies each of the enforcement order items, but it really boils down to the 12 trees yet to be planted in the wetland area, which we all know about and had agreed to be done in this fall. And then the locations and quantities of the shrubs once they're determined. And then the pollinator habitat areas and seed mixes, which I think they've given us the seed mixes. And we're fine with those. Yeah, they're fine with those. So let me go to the spreadsheets.
The most recent one is a revision of 710.
Yeah, we can do this quickly. This is the spreadsheet that shows the, let me just zoom out a little bit here.
This is whole one.
This is hole one. And you can see, it goes down the bottom is hole 1, 2, 3, all the holes that were planted. And then the shrubs are also here listed 1 through 100, which is what, that's what Stuart was alluding to a few minutes ago. So for hole 1, it's like, and this is all updated according to Barry's list and Bill Rocco's list for what was actually planted at each hole.
Right.
So this is now current. And then really it's just having the club add the tree tag number, the GPS locations, and then the condition throughout the 5-year period. So this really sets up for them a very simple and understandable and compact monitoring sort of roll up. They'll probably be giving us a little more detail on each annual report, but this will be sort of the roll up version so the commission can see, what plants doing well, what plants aren't doing well, so on and so forth. So that I think is going to be very useful going
Let's
forward.
say go to hole 4, please. And scroll down.
Yeah.
Yes. See where I changed it to green because they gave me a different list.
Oh,
So I just wanted to separate it because it was on 2 different.
so
there
what
were
is
2
green?
different-
What does
I
green
don't
mean in
remember.
your?
I don't remember, but if you scroll up, you'll see like Juniper's version. They're showing up. It shows up twice.
Oh, I see. Oh yeah, up here. Yeah.
So I wanted to make sure that they're identified as separate,
Okay.
in separate places. That's all.
Okay.
And we can clean that up so it's easier to understand, next week. It's not a biggie.
Yeah.
And certainly the tree tag numbers would indicate what that's all about.
Exactly. So this now goes to the spreadsheet that identifies each of the, and Stuart and Evan from our office did all the work on this. So just giving credit where credit's due there. So this takes, so what Stuart did was you took every element of the
Emergency order.
second amended order.
Right.
And then we just did a quick, complete, not complete.
Mhm.
And Evan and Stuart did this together and came up with these things. So all the complete things are done. I won't go through the complete ones, but everything, the things that need to be, things that are open need to be resolved. So
Yeah.
this one is the pollinator habitat, the updated figures showing the pollinated habitat areas. And a lot of this is future stuff for the, so at least 1 week prior to installation of the tree shall notify a third-party reviewer that trees have been delivered into schedule. This is mostly done. This is all done except for the 12 in the wetland area at the 8th fairway there. All these items are done and complete. And then June 30th of this year shall implement the restoration work. And this is verbally approved fall 2023 installation for trees within the wetland, which that's all been done, all been agreed to anyway. And then by October 2028, that's again the final return to compliance letter.
Mhm.
And then these are all the monitoring reports, annual monitoring reports. And then there is I didn't see it, but there's a project completion or implementation completion report that should be November 30th. Oh, here it is here. Completion report should be submitted to Peabody Conservation Commission describing all activities. Monitoring shall be performed. So basically this is the letter that says, hey, we've done everything. We're into monitoring mode and we're ready to go. And then the monitoring reports. And there you go. Everything's out into 2028 at that point. So I think the club has gotten everything together. I think we're in a good position, but for those three little bits, the shrubs, the pollinator habitat, and the plantings in the fall. So that's where we're at. Ben, was there anything else that you saw that needed to be done before we
No, I think we're in agreement here. I think,
Yeah.
we need to inspect the plant material when it comes in for hole 8 and take a look and make sure. I think, the plan was that, or the theory was that it would be a very dry summer and they would have the ability to plant in the summertime, but obviously that's not come to fruition. So
Not yet.
probably
Not yet.
fall at a better time, right?
well,
So we'll
thank
see how
God
that-
for all this rain. That's all I
Yeah.
can say. Yeah.
Well, it's certainly been a boon for the club, and I think
Yeah.
they hopefully have benefited greatly from that. So
Yeah.
it's a good thing. Yeah.
It's all good. So that's where we're at, Stuart. If the commission has questions or you want to,
Does
Open it up.
anybody in the commission want to say anything?
I have,
Comment on any of this?
through the chair, I just have one question. I saw on the the list we just went through, I didn't see the spot on there about the 100% survivorship for all trees.
Oh,
no, that's definitely in there. It's 100% for the trees and 75 for the shrubs.
Okay. Okay. I'm good.
Through the chair,
go ahead.
who's gonna monitor the monitoring reports for the next 5 years?
Can't understand you. One more time.
Monitor the monitoring reports.
Who's going to monitor them?
Yeah, who are they getting submitted to?
They're getting submitted to Lucia. The last page of the spreadsheet talks about giving the address for Lucia and the address for Mike DeRosa. So the communications will be between Lucia and the country club. And she'll have all those records scanned and available for anybody to see them. Okay? Anybody else? Okay. Lucia, do you have any comments?
Nope.
Okay, you want to open it up to the Salem Country Club to comment on any of this or all of it?
Sure.
They all become participants. Hey, Barry, Bill,
Barry Fogel from Keegan Whirling for the Salem Country Club, and you can see Bill Rocco, the club superintendent, is here tonight with us. So we've tracked as best as we could the comments that Mike was making. We saw that it was in a letter. We didn't receive a copy of that. I hope we can get a copy. But a couple of things come to mind in listening to the discussion. First is, we don't think you need to issue a third amended enforcement order. It's starting to get a little bit sort of thick and complicated. Frankly, the reason we called this the final restoration plan was because it addressed everything in the second amended enforcement order. And there are a couple of items that, for purposes of the season, and because it's going to be the plantings in the fall of shrubs and getting the GPS geolocation of the trees and shrubs, that it was our intention or thinking that there would be effectively an as-built plan for that in the November report. And prior to the planting of the shrubs in areas A through L, the specific locations would be identified and exchanged with the commission and your peer reviewers to be implemented. But I happen to believe that we don't need a sort of a modified enforcement order to do that. It's sort of inherent in the aspect of the second amended enforcement order that you would review and approve all activities. So that would be our first comment. As far as the number 8 planting, I think the plan has always said that the idea was to dig the holes when it gets as dry as possible in the late summer, and then they do the planting in the fall, as Ben just commented, which is sort of a prime season for that. So our expectation is that unless it just keeps raining like it has, and we may end up in August with a drier spell, and that would be a good time for the excavation for those holes. As far as the shrubs in area A through L, we gave you the list, and we had given you figures previously that sort of conceptually showed that shrubs would be planted interstitially among the trees once we knew where the trees actually ended up being planted, which is why they couldn't be located ahead of time. And I think, as anyone who's been out there has seen, if Ben or Mike or Evan have been out, there's been a fair amount of succession of undergrowth in the areas A through L where trees were planted, in most of them. And so the idea is that it's really only beneficial to plant shrubs in places where there's space. I don't think anyone would suggest that the club cut down succession of any native understory or other trees that are growing naturally in order to put a shrub in. So the intention is that you would get a plan in the next couple of months once the trees have been geolocated, and then those figures can be I'll call it sort of drilled into in some detail, and locations of understory growth can be indicated, and locations for shrub planting can be indicated. So we think it's better to keep this as sort of a iterative process with you and your peer reviewers, rather than sort of trying to set this up as requiring a brand new enforcement order and a brand new plan. One other comment, and I don't know if we want to talk about these as we go, but I have about a short list of 2 or 3 more items, and then I think we can have a good dialogue. As far as tags on the shrubs, it makes sense to do that for the shrubs planted in the buffer zone areas, but Bill may have a photograph that we can share later, send along, but that pond bank on number 2, where the shrubs were planted, is fully grown in, not only with some of those shrubs, but a lot of succession has taken place of native species there, and it's just thick. And I'm going to call it impossible. There's probably a better word, but it sort of doesn't really lend itself to trying to go in there and mark the 100 1-gallon shrubs that were planted there. We think it's a better conclusion that the goal was to have that pond bank fully vegetated and revegetated, and that's been accomplished. So we would, respectfully push back on the idea of trying to mark and geolocate the shrubs. They were planted and spaced evenly. I'm assuming that either Ben or Mike or Evan were out there and saw that after those were planted. and had inspected them. But that's the one thing we would take issue with on that item. As far as pollinator habitat locations, that was also sort of, I think we've already, as Mike DeRosa mentioned, a couple of them have already been established. I think, Bill, you can confirm it. It might be near the 18T and the 14T. Are a
That's
couple-
correct. Left of
And-
AT&T, right of 14. Those are done, established. And now it's
And
just,
Mike DeRosa mentioned maybe putting that seed mix in where the Japanese hops were removed.
that's left of 18.
Oh, that's left of 18, so that was already done, actually. So, I think, again, that's another item that, there's a couple of additional areas that can be added, we can sort of bring that to the commission later. We don't think it's necessary that becomes, again, something that forces a further amended enforcement order and a final plan. As far as the 100% and 75% on the shrubs and trees in A through L, we appreciate that you all put together that monitoring sheet. It's not the intention of the club anyway to be at 100% throughout the period of the 5 years. This is kind of like a wetland replication where after, typically it says to achieve that after 2 or 3 growing seasons. And our expectation is that there will be 100% tree replacement at the end of the 5 years, as opposed to, and with the shrubs as well, all along the way. That's something we need to clarify. I think that was it. I didn't follow any of the other items as sort of needing more discussion. One thing I was confused about. Were you suggesting, I think it might have been the chairman, you want on the report, you want to have where the figures that show the geolocation of the trees to identify them by the tag number, right? Is that what you were?
Well, I think there's both. There's a tag number that you guys put in there, and there's a geolocation that we don't have.
Right, no, but when we geolocate it, it will have the tag number because on our list of the tags, those actually tag number goes with each of the species. So it'll give you a tie back to the species of tree that's at that location. I understand your point now. Yeah.
I think the chart says tag number and it then says GPS number.
Yeah.
So a place for each tree to mark 2 things.
Yep. So, I think we've seen good growth. Obviously, the water helped. I think they've been managed and protected. So we're in pretty good shape. It was really helpful to get the approval in April to start getting the trees from the nurseries and get them in the ground. And so again, there's probably 2 or 3 things that are pretty, I'll call them minor. And again, I think we can address that with some additional submittals to you within the context of this final plan and this second amended enforcement order, as opposed to sort of like kicking off another round of stuff. I think our concept was that you would approve this plan with the condition that those 3 items be addressed, and any additional pollinator habitat be identified, that the shrubs be located. And frankly, in the November plan, you're going to get an as-built set of plans. Oh, this is the other thing before I finish. One last thing. We gave you in this plan figures that showed where the no disturb zones and the jurisdictional markers would be, but those were, I'll call them marked up. We sort of used yellow highlighting and red squiggles to show where those would be. The plan, the idea, the concept is that those would be locked in as well as part of the GPS process and put on a final set of figures. So what you would get in a final set of as-built in November are where the no disturbs are, where the granite markers are, where the trees are, and where the shrubs would be planted in among the trees and the successional growth. So hopefully, I think we've gotten to consensus on the issues you wanted to have addressed. The meetings we had, discussions we had were very helpful. Happy to answer any questions.
Let me just see if I can summarize. You said you don't want to do tags on the shrubs. The 100 tags you feel are not able to get in there because of the undergrowth?
No, this is on the pond bank,
On the what?
on the pond bank of number 2.
Right, but.
Yeah,
I-
it's grown in.
the-
It would be disruptive to try to locate them now. They're all grown in among each other and with other native species, raspberry that's grown back.
But I can't tell, how do we tell which ones are doing well and which ones aren't? Again, on the chart.
It was never our intention to geolocate the 100 shrubs on that bank. What we understood the requirement for that bank to be revegetated with shrubs so that it's not just the sod slope.
I'm
And
not,
that's
I'm
been
not in
accomplished. So,
I'm not in disagreement about geolocating them. I would like to see an as-built with the numbers of 1 through 100 for each of those shrubs you planted and identify them with something so that you can go in 2 years from now and say how they're doing. That's the problem. How do you
Yeah,
know
well-
what's what? And also, it's a 75% survival rate on those, on the shrubs.
we think that's unnecessary on that pond bank. The 75%, we don't have a problem with that being applied to the shrubs planted in the buffer zones. But we have a real concern about trying to drill down that deeply into what's going on that pond bank. It's fully grown in, it's thick, it's shrubs. It just, I'm just saying, I don't understand how that could be accomplished and why it would be necessary. There's no question, I hope, that 100 shrubs were planted there. I mean, Bill ordered 4 sets of 25 of those species that were selected in consultation with Ben and Mike. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, that either Ben or Mike or Evan inspected those when they came in, and they all were planted. I mean, Bill didn't buy 100 shrubs and plant 50 and take 50 somewhere else. They're all out there. It's just the thing has grown up and it's a thicket of shrubbery. So
I think if I can jump in quick, I think, Barry, what I'm hearing you say is that, and I don't disagree, that the intent of the Wetlands Protection Act, in particular under 1055, is that we are replacing habitat. We're not replacing plant for plant. So I understand that. And if the bank is thoroughly vegetated and functioning, I would not disagree with what you're saying. What concerns me, though, is, and I think what concerns the commission, is that we need to have some sort of metric to document that there's at least 75% survival of the shrubs. And this seemed to be a simple way to do it. Now, if the other concern I have is that the other shrubs that are coming in, or the raspberry or whatever else, we want to make sure that there's not invasive things coming in that are gonna adversely affect the function and value of those plantings that you installed. The sweet pepper bush and all the other, steeple bush and everything else, which was a good plant community for that location. So I hear what you're saying. And at the same time, I understand that the commission is, in order to sign off on this in 5 years, is going to need some way to address that 75% metric. And this seemed like a straightforward way to do that.
yeah, Bill, do you have a photograph that you can, of that current slope, that you can hold your phone up to the screen? I mean, I'm just gonna say that, this
It's
is.
impenetrable. Yeah, I
Well,
understand.
and the 75% is not a concern for where you can access, this is, you don't want people marching around on that slope and disrupting it. The idea is to have it be fully grown in. We're not disputing and have not disputed this, hold it up close and still. Get it real close, real close, real close.
You
I
can
mean-
send it to me and I can share my screen.
Yeah, I mean, you can see that, it's thick as can be.
And I'm sure this summer has just been an amazing
so,
attribute.
I'm just gonna say
guess-
that, we're gonna have to, I don't know. We don't think the 75% on that should apply to that pond bank. It should apply to the shrubs that are in the buffer zone areas. The idea was to restore that habitat from what it became with the sod that was put in. It's all shrubbed up, trying to track which ones of the 100 get bigger or covered by, no one wants to go marching around in there. I just think that that's not, that you guys should recognize that should not be part of this.
How do we know what the condition of the shrubs are in 3 years?
You're going to look at that pond bank and you're going to see that it's fully vegetated. We won't know exactly which bush is biggest and which shrub didn't make it. It's going to remain fully vegetated. I don't know how else to explain it. I mean, the idea was to plant enough shrubs that with what we planted and with what succeeded on its own successionally, that it's fully vegetated as pond bank habitat. It's stable, it provides cover for species, and that's been accomplished.
But you haven't accomplished the metric of how do we tell if that's all happening?
I don't know what to say. I think
Through the chair.
I think we're making a lot out of something that's quite unnecessary given the broader context here.
Well, my question is if the plantings on that on that slope, if they choke out, if invasives appear and they choke out the plantings that you put in that are native, then you can have a fully vegetated bank, but it's all invasive. We've lost the plantings that we wanted to. So I think what we're saying is, no question, it's going to be vegetated. But if it's vegetated with all invasives, then we've not done our diligence in protecting the resource area and keeping down any invasives. That's all. How do we know that they're not invasives? And
well, it's like we can inspect it for invasives, but I mean, then they can be, there's invasives. Go ahead, Bill.
Through the chair. So I think, the best success for what's currently there is to be cutting down what's very competitive and what's native to there, which I don't think that's what is in the best interest of that bank to be vegetated. I just sent a picture to Mike. He'll send it or he'll share it whenever. But most of that's just raspberry and what was there before. There's probably some invasives there. It's a scenario we can cut those down, but the only way the other ones can survive is if we cut down everything that's not the new shrubs. Maybe the metric for that bank should be 75% establishment for the bank.
It is the metric.
Of
Well,
native species, though, 75% of native.
Oh, yeah,
species.
natives,
Yeah,
for the stuff you planted.
Let's be realistic about this. It doesn't make any sense to be marching around in there trying to mark 100 shrubs were planted. It could have been 50, it could have been 300. The idea was to make sure there was enough growth on that bank in order to stabilize it as a shrub, a pond bank for wildlife function and other habitat value. And that's been accomplished. If you want to require something that, in this approval that says, manage any invasives that grow up on that, that's fine. I can't find a way to say that it makes any sense to try to tag these and track the 100 shrubs that were put there. The idea was if nothing else returned there and succeeded successionally, then there would be shrubs and we would see what happened. But the thing's overgrown at this point, which is good. Some of these have grown up, others are growing up. I mean, it doesn't make sense to us why you would want this much effort
I
to
could-
go into something that's been achieved.
If I could ask a question, so if 100 plants were planted on that slope, weren't they already tagged? Isn't there a
No.
tag with every plant?
They were 1-gallon plants. They were small.
But isn't there a tag with each one of those gallon?
No. It-
Through the
it was
chair,
never- Go ahead.
through the chair, look, guys. I do this for a living.
Yeah.
And Barry, in all due respect, this whole conversation is crazy. What you're saying is correct, but guess what, guys? In November, you'll be able to see every single one that was planted. I don't care what anybody tells you. I don't care what Barry says right now, and I don't care what the vegetation is. You guys are really worried about it. I think that Barry is right, and I think that it doesn't really matter. But if this is what you guys want, you go in with 100 tree stakes, you go in with 100 surveying stakes. You walk in November, you'll be able to see every plant, bang them in, and there's your locations. It's as simple as that. It won't take that long. You're making more of this than it needs. I don't want to listen to it anymore. So I don't want to listen to it. If you guys want it, then we'll do it in November. If you don't want it, forget about it.
That's the overgrown area.
Yeah.
Are we saying that in November, the growth that has grown in besides the trees or bushes we planted, that'll all die back? Should be able to see the shrubs?
I mean, a lot of what Bruce said is right. They'll be much more visible in November, December, and in the winter.
Okay.
Um,
But I would
so-
like to know whether,
Yeah.
you know, it's
I
a
mean,
symmetric.
there's good things here, you know, this elderberry's a native, that's a great thing. I think these all look like raspberry canes. So yeah, I think, you know, the point is the commission wants to make sure the bank is stabilized. Barry's correct on that. The commission wants to know that it's not invasives coming in there to occupy the space. So the commission's correct on that. And Bruce's point is right. It's like we'll be able to see it in the late fall, winter, and it's not a big deal. And I agree, it's not a big deal. We don't have to go trampling through there. We don't have to tear things apart. We can make the assessment that, hey, you know, 75% of the vegetation here is native. It's what we want here. We can make those observations without making a mess of everything, in lieu of counting, you know, every individual plant that they put in there. Some of those are going to survive, some aren't. But as long as we're reaching that percent cover and that function and value of that bank, I think that's what's important. I think that's what Barry's getting at. And
Yeah.
but I don't think we need to make a big deal out of it. Like Bruce said, it's like we can deal with that.
Okay,
So-
I'm okay with that. Okay.
Yeah.
But I will say, when you were putting in 100 plants and you put them all on the ground, it would have been so much easier to put a tag on them when you planted them then. You stuck a
And
tag
I
on
think,
each.
I think, Mike, this is important because for the shrubs that are going in within A through L areas, we should have them do that. Put tags on when they go in.
Yeah.
And then that's all done. I don't think Barry's
Okay.
fighting that at all.
No, through the
Okay.
chair, that was in the plan.
Okay,
So the other thing you said was, you want this to be considered final, but we're not done. I mean,
That's
I
why
want
it's
to
called a
see-
plan, Mr. Chairman.
Huh?
It's a plan, not a as-built. So the idea is that
Oh.
we've given you a plan that proposes to do everything that was described in the second amended enforcement order as amended, sort of the detail of the type of, as your amended order mentioned, the specific locations and design of the markers for jurisdictional areas would be subject to your review and approval. Well, that's why it's in that plan.
We can simplify that because, okay, this can be considered a final submission because when you make a final submission, but every submission, once it's submitted, if it's final and it's reviewed and there's questions or changes, or each time it's submitted is a submission date. So it's final submission, third submission, final design, third submission, final design, fourth submission, final design. That's how a design is done. That's how engineering is done. That's how a plan gets moved forward. Once you submitted a final plan, there are reviews and maybe changes that happen along the way. Something goes wrong or something, there might be a change. Until it's approved, every time it's submitted, it's another submission or another review, but you still call it a final submission, but it's, each one has a different date.
Through the chair.
Yes.
Well, let me just respond to Mike for a minute. I like the idea of different dates for each submission because then there's a recorded history.
Yeah.
And you can go back and see if we got something or didn't get it. By just calling this one a final plan and not knowing if the plan was ever done, the way it says, is
No, it's
not fair
okay.
to.
We're trying to get a final submission, so this is in the review of that, and we're all agreeing on all these items. There's a couple things still to come. If you just put a date on it, then it still stays as final submission. It's just not. It's the third review, or whatever you want to call it: third submission, fourth submission, second submission.
Go ahead,
Chair.
Barry.
So November, you're going to get an as-built and a report, right?
Hmm?
The plan that you have shows you where things would be done in all of the areas you wanted to see done. The only thing that's left to be done is to actually geolocate them and put these different things on a final set of figures as
Well,
part of that plan.
Which is
And-
fine. Just date that.
No, it's going to be dated in November.
That's fine. But then it's
No.
not final. It'll never be final until we're done.
I don't know why we're arguing. This is the final restoration plan that was submitted in response to the second amended enforcement order. That's our plan. It has all of the things in it that you wanted. Now what you're going to do is you're going to get a chance to review the specific, the markers, and you'll get a set of figures. I don't know why it doesn't make any sense to us to be sending you a letter dated August 15th with second final updated. You've got everything that we're going to do. Everything that the club is going to do is stated in the filing that you got Monday.
Do we have a plan now in front of us that shows all the trees that were planted?
No, that's going to be an as-built.
November.
That's going to be an as-built in the November completion report. I think what you're talking about here is because this is an enforcement action, it's not the same as a Conservation Commission order of conditions where you get a final plan that's referenced in the order and then you get you have the plan that you wanted. It has some steps intentionally according to your amended enforcement order that would be subject to your peer reviewers seeing the species, looking at the plants, confirming the locations of where the shrubs are put in the buffer zones. And then when that's all taken place, that'll all be locked down into an as-built set of figures that come in with the November completion report. We're making more work for everybody that we think is unnecessary. We think we've reached agreement on all the items you asked for in the way you asked for them. The only step left is to actually complete the implementation and give you the as-built as part of the completion report.
Well, Barry, do we know how many markers are going to be put in the field and where they're going to go?
Yes, the figures that were attached to the plan we submitted Monday shows where they would be and describes in the narrative, they would be 50 feet apart, located, and then, have the snow stakes if they're in the winter and all that. So they were shown, the idea was that you would look at those, and once you give approval for those locations with any discussion you want to have, that would be geolocated when they're put in and shown on the as-bills. But yes, that and the areas where it was specifically requested that the buffer zone, no disturbs, be moved out to 25 feet is also shown. And I can share my screen just to give you.
And just for brevity, Barry, it's
Yeah.
like we looked at that and we agree with that whole strategy. So
Good.
so we've advised the commission that's good. So there's no need to belabor that.
No, but just
Um,
because it's being recorded, let me, if I could, this will take 1 second. Let me know if everybody can see my screen.
Yep.
All right, so in this filing, so here, these were the figures that showed this is the flagged buffer zone, the flags of, and I'll give you an example. So this is an example of where there would be, we had proposed this line of no disturb, 10 feet, and this yellow highlight is to show that that was an area where we would move it out to 25 feet. So that's one piece. And then these red markers are to show that 50 yards apart, there'd be these two markers, the granite markers on the ground, using snow stakes to give an indication that there's, a wetland here, the green area. So, that's how this was depicted. And when they're actually located in the field, sorry, go ahead.
Okay,
And
Yeah,
that'll all get picked up in the as-built for the November 30th report, right, Barry?
That's exactly right. So here's now, this is the wetland on 8. So the no disturb, instead of being this 10 feet line in purple that was proposed earlier in June, that this becomes 25 feet here and then just continues on and becomes 25 feet around here. And then these are the markers, the granite markers.
and but that's that's great. I like that. Just seems a very are there enough markers? I'm not saying we need them. Would you say they were 50 yards apart?
Well, the
And
commission's going to view these in the field and then
Oh.
approve them, and then they'll get located and put on the plan. That's my
Yeah.
understanding, right?
Yeah. That's exactly right. I mean, one step that we got to have here is that as things get implemented between now and November, the planting of the shrubs and so forth, you or somebody from the commission or your peer reviewer is going to be out in the field, and we're going to find the best places for these things. But this was
Okay.
sort of just to conceptually show you how it would work.
Okay,
Yeah. Same thing here
That's
on,
good.
so that's what these were. This was to show the expansion to 25 feet. There's a lot of that as you requested. Okay.
Let me ask a question so I understand. If you don't have the marker where the 25-foot distance is, what's on the ground at that point? Is there a piece of stone or something that's marking that area?
stake.
Yeah, it's going to be those stakes with the green tops. It was shown in that filing. There's the USGA actually uses that as a method of red stakes and yellow stakes mark penalty areas. And then by using the green top few inches, that was a signal to the club maintenance staff and players that's mostly the maintenance staff, of course, that's a no mow, no weed whack area.
Okay, so those stakes will be there. Those stakes will be there all the time. Not
Yes.
just in the winter. Okay. I thought they were gonna put them
That's
there in the
because
winter.
wetlands and streams are marked as penalty areas. It's the nature of.
Whatever.
They
It
serve
works
that-
it works in our favor. That's fine.
That's right. Yeah, and I want to point out that the club's going to put on the scorecards on the back, where they often say, white stakes mark out of bounds, and red, it'll say stakes with green tops indicate no disturb areas. So that's actually going to be built in into the printing of the scorecard, so all the players know it, guests, but Bill's maintenance staff will know it anyway.
It can't mark courtesy of the Peabody Conservation Commission.
Yeah, sure. And you don't
Whatever.
want us to do that.
No, it's fine.
Yeah.
If they're there all the time and they're indicating a no disturb zone as well as a penalty zone, whatever, but they're there for the purpose we're looking for.
Yeah.
And that's fine.
Hello?
Yeah, go ahead, Amanda.
So I just want to make sure that like, when we get to November, you guys aren't like, oh, sorry, we didn't tag the trees. We can't do an as-built. Everything's really grown in. We don't want to disturb anything. I just want to make sure that doesn't happen.
If they did that, they'd be in violation of the enforcement order. So they will definitely make sure they meet that November 30th deadline, and
We
we'll
want
be
that less
monitoring
than
it.
you
too.
do,
Yeah.
Mhm.
through the chair.
Go ahead.
That I said that after I said that. So through the chair, we want that less than you do.
Well, I think everybody wants to be done with this too. It's
Exactly.
been a long time coming, and you know, personally, I'm happy I don't have to worry about the rest of the trees you cut down. Just the ones in the wetland. All right, so we're looking to reconvene on site in November at the latest.
No, the next step would be, well, frankly, if I threw the chair, we would ask that you actually vote to authorize the final restoration plan that was submitted, subject to coordination with you and your peer reviewer for the selection of the locations of the shrubs in the areas A through L, so that you can, just like we did with the trees, we'll get notice to you when they arrive. You'll inspect those and the trees on number 8. So there would be communication about the final implementation of the plantings, and then we'll submit a as-built after that's all been GPSed and geolocated, with figures and photos, and we'll come before you in a meeting in December if you'd like to sort of just talk about it, answer any questions. But no, there'll be some contact and effort, we think, going on obviously in the next few months to finalize the planting in accordance with this plan that we think fully addresses your order. The pollinator habitat stuff is, I'll call that sort of minor, just like the pond bank. That's the kind of thing that we can have as an ongoing sort of action item of once, Bill can figure out if there's a couple of other areas to be where that seed mix can be thrown down and maintained. We'll coordinate with you guys on that.
Yeah, just one comment on that is I would say that the commission I would advise the commission to get, maybe it's part of the November 30th plan, Barry, but to have the locations of those habitat areas on the plan so that, 3 years from now, we're not here anymore. The commission at that time can find where those are.
And they're not mown down, right?
And exactly.
Yeah, no, that's a good point, that the pollinator habitat areas will be geolocated as well.
Yeah.
One more question about geolocating or GPS. I have seen online, not that you can find anything online, but the GPS coordinates are accurate to only 30 feet. Do you find that to be?
What?
Do you see that as better on GPS than 30 feet?
Well, it
Like
depends on.
if I go to a tree and I go to the next tree, will there really be a difference in GPS number?
It depends on
That's
the
what-
accuracy of the GPS. Yeah.
GPS should be to the hundredth of a foot for crying out loud.
Well,
Say
it
that
depends on
again?
what they're using. Yeah, it depends on what they're using.
All
So
right, well, whatever. I just want to make sure that we can literally take some sort of device and see a GPS number and correlate it to a tree.
Yeah, they have
plan.
they can walk around and they put a post up and they take a reading on that and you get northing and easting to 4 places. It's,
Yeah,
You could pin it with Google Maps.
yeah, that would be Weston and Sampson's people doing that. So
Yeah.
they've got the equipment that
Okay,
works to the pinpoint it.
yeah, you can locate a dime with GPS.
okay. I'm just concerned that it doesn't work, that's all. But if Weston and Sampson can do it, then let's say, get them involved and get them to do it.
They have the technology to do it. So
Okay.
Barry's right on that point that, yeah, the as-built plan will be what you need.
Okay, then I'm happy.
So again, through the chair, I mean, we actually think that it would be a appropriate and positive step if you were to vote to sort of accept this as the final plan, subject to the condition that, one, that there would be ongoing notice about the arrival of trees and shrubs and for inspection, and then 2, that the as-built plans geolocate the trees, the shrubs in areas A through L, the pollinator habitat, the markers, and the no disturb zones.
I understand what you're asking. I don't know if it's necessary. I would think that in November, when we get the plan that with all the things located and marked on the plan, at that point, that would be an approved final plan. And then subject to all the plant survival and the reports every year. I don't see it's necessary to say, do what you're asking until November when we get the final plan.
Well-
I agree with that, Mike. I think because they still have 12 trees to plant, they still have plans to repair. I think that's fair, Barry. We'll just continue, we'll handle that all on the November, after the November 30th deadline's met. We have time to review it, and then the first meeting in December, we could handle all that.
Through the chair,
You don't agree?
no, I'm thinking that one thing is that the board at Salem Country Club, not just Bill, the board, the general manager, the membership want to know that this is the plan, right? And so what we're asking for is that you approve the proposal that's been made of what's to be implemented, including the last piece, the 8, the number of trees and so forth. The action that you would take in November would be to say, for example, if you look at the as-built, it might be to say, we'd like you to tweak this or do that. But what the club, its membership, the board, and the general manager and Bill are looking for is that you and the peer reviewers have said, you now have given us proposals and you've implemented a bunch of them, and the remaining items satisfy the directives in the enforcement order. We're trying to
Yeah.
clamshell.
Try to
those
get
together.
some certainty. They want
Yeah.
certainty. Yeah.
Yeah, not that the
Can,
target, and I'm not suggesting you would, but that the target's not moving. We have an audience of the membership and the board that's saying, where do we stand? And our discussion with them ahead of tonight was, we think we've given them a plan that addresses everything they asked for. There's some steps yet to be completed, but we've committed to all those things. And based on the final discussion, we hope to come back with at least a validation of the plan as satisfying the directives in the enforcement order. Not a return to compliance vote, but
Right.
a verification that the plan has addressed the second amended enforcement order.
Are you asking, or can I ask for a motion to accept the plan tonight and to take under advice all of the suggestions we made for the future until November 30? So the plan is accepted and we're moving forward. I don't know if it's final, but it is a plan.
Through the chair, I would second that motion.
Well, usually on when you're submitting plans and stuff, there's usually a submission, a 25%, a 50%, a 75%. Those things are that but we're talking about a final plan. And I understand what you're saying, Barry. I just don't feel that we should, I agree with what you're saying, maybe in the form of a memo or something, a memorandum that you can spread around the country club. But I just don't feel it's necessary to approve the plan until November, when the plantings are marked and shown on the as-built.
I'm not suggesting we approve the plan. I'm suggesting we accept the plan. That's the plan. We're
Yeah.
not approving it until later.
If I could through the chair, but Mr. Rizzo, this is not 25, 50, 100% like an engineered structure. What I'm asking for is that you say the club has submitted to you a plan that addresses to your satisfaction with proposals or completed actions. There's more completed actions than proposals left, that fully addresses what's in your second amended enforcement order, that you have received something that gives you proposals for all of that. That's what I'm asking for.
But that's the plan. That's not final. We're still working it. So I'm accepting, I would make a motion, or I'd like to get a motion to accept your plan. And we can review it every month from now until November 30. Because things will change.
But that's the implementation of the plan. What I'm
It's a
suggesting through the
plan. It's
chair
the
is that
same
we
plan,
we
Barry.
want the commission, a majority of the commission, hopefully, if not unanimously, to say the club has submitted something that addresses the directives in the second amended enforcement order.
And
There's
I have a
nothing,
question.
in other words, there's nothing left to be given to you other than the as-built and the reports, the monitoring reports. There's no proposals. There's no issue that you asked for the club to address that has not been addressed.
And I'm asking for a
that's-
motion to
Okay.
accept that. Not to approve it, just accept it.
As a sufficient filing in response to the second amended enforcement order. That's what I'm asking for. And this is, I hesitate to say this, but it's important. In a month, the deadline that Attorney Khan and I stipulated for serving the complaint will expire, and I'm happy to let that go. With this, the club will know that it has filed with you something that you find sufficient to address the second enforcement order, and there's no need to appeal it. That's really important for all of us, is that we all just move on to implementation as opposed to more filings to give you more proposals. The idea is that we've given you proposals reviewed by your peer reviewer and you that addresses completely the second enforcement order.
I think let me try to say it a different way. So I think what Barry's asking the commission to do is to accept what he has submitted and what we've reviewed and what we agree with. We've all agreed that the plan, right, addresses the things in the enforcement order. The only pieces that are missing are the trees for the 8th, the locations and quantity of the shrubs for the understory plantings, and the areas for the pollinator habitat. And that,
location, and the
yeah,
location.
and the locations, and that's all going to be on the as-built plan. So we know that we all agree that that's all going to happen. Hasn't happened yet, but it's going to happen. And so what Barry's asking for is for the commission to vote to say everything that we've discussed in tonight's meeting, plus what he proposed in his quote unquote final plan, addresses the things in the second amended enforcement order, and the commission agrees with that. So what he's trying to do is lock us in, so we're not going to be asking for anything more, but I don't think we are, because everything in that second amended enforcement order has been addressed. Some things still need to be done, but they've been addressed. Those things, when implemented, will address the items in the
Well, I think it's,
enforcement order. So I'm okay with the commission voting for that.
I agree.
We're okay, as long as you include the discussions tonight as part of the motion.
Yeah, and that's pretty simple. We agree that the second amendment enforcement order has been agreed upon and is in process of being completed. You know, it's most of it, probably 80% of it has all been done. I don't know what the actual percentage is, but we agreed that we're on board, and with the exception of the things we mentioned tonight, will be done.
Through the chair.
But
The distinction I'm making is that the second amended enforcement order called for submit proposals for A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J. Implementation of that plan takes time. We've implemented a lot of it. There's some pieces still to be implemented. I'm only asking for a verification that the plan with the proposed activities in response to the second amendment is complete, that you've gotten proposals for all the things with the details that we talked about.
Mhm.
And that the plan, which is a word that means a proposal, addresses the requirements of the second amended enforcement order. We can lock that in as you've given us what we asked for. Now we need you to implement it, the rest of it.
Okay,
Through the chair,
but
Barry, can you say that other thing where it almost seemed like a thread? I don't know what you talked to Attorney Don Khan, and
Yeah, let me explain that.
you were willing to drop something if we agreed to do this, like you kind of threw that in there.
Sure. Yeah, so let me clarify that through the chair. So we filed an appeal of the first enforcement order because there's a deadline of 60 days. This was back more than a year ago. We stipulated there's a provision that allows you to not serve the complaint. And then you can stipulate with the other party that the deadline for serving the complaint, which starts the lawsuit or the appeal, can be deferred. And Attorney Khan, representing you, and I have 3 times stipulated extensions of time so that we wouldn't be engaged in any litigation or appeal over this enforcement order. The current deadline for that is the middle of August. So what I was saying is, the reason I'm asking for this vote for the board's, my board's benefit, the club's benefit, is to know that the amended enforcement order has been addressed completely and that you agree with that in terms of the proposals. We let the appeal die. By not serving it, it goes away. It never.
You'd be essentially telling the club that they're not going to spend $1 billion on lawyer fees in litigation if we say, yes, everything's great tonight, and yes, we're on board and we agree. Is that what you're saying?
I don't know about $1 billion, but it would end. We would never engage in an appeal of any of the enforcement orders because we would have, the club and the commission will have reached agreement that the plan you got addresses your order. Yes. Yeah. I mean, I only mentioned it because it's sort of, it's there, it's out there, but I could advise them to, there's no need to appeal it because we're now completing implementation. No new requirements are being imposed other than the implementation, but yes. Does that help?
Yes.
anybody else? So we're looking for a motion from the commission. And we want to approve a plan that's been submitted that has not been accomplished in total. Correct?
I'll make that motion.
Okay. With the caveat that November 30th is the end date. Any second? Does anybody want to modify that?
I'll second.
Okay, Arthur seconds it. So you have a roll call vote, please.
Yep, so that motion was made by Mr. Rizzo, seconded by Mr. Athos. Roll call, Chairman Lazares,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Rizzo,
Yes.
Secretary Vivaldi,
Yes.
Commissioner Green,
No,
Commissioner Comac,
Yes,
Commissioner Athos.
Yes.
All right, so that passes 5-1 with Amanda voting no. To accept the plan that is currently pending implementation, correct?
Correct.
Yes.
You happy with that, Barry?
Yes, I mean, I would have preferred that it had language accepting it as being a complete response to the enforcement order, but I think that's inherent in the discussion we've had at long length over the last 20 minutes, so yes. Thank you
The
very much
last
for that.
several-
That's
the last
really
year.
helpful. I think it's
Okay.
good to be at this point because A, we don't need to come back on July 26th at your next meeting, and then we can just get moving with hoping that at least it's dry enough for Bill to dig the holes in 8. Get Ben out there to look at them, get the species ordered, get, the shrubs, blah, blah, blah. We want to complete this implementation, and this helps us with certainty to move ahead with that.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Wait, hold on. Are you going to continue this to September or continue this to the October meeting?
You asking me?
I'm asking someone, not me. I mean, does everyone want to
Alright.
come back? Do we think that we're gonna have enough information
Well,
September?
I think it's important to continue this, but not let it lie dormant. I think we just need to have maybe each month just a response, a review saying
Yeah.
that we're on schedule. There's nothing's happening. Don't want to show up in November and find out that we couldn't do something because
Yeah, no, through the chair, I think it's a good idea to put it on for September and then give you a report, what's happened since, and then do it again in October. So,
I agree. No, I agree.
That
We're
was a-
not meeting in August, is that correct?
well, are we going to meet in August?
I don't think so.
No, we normally take it's holiday, but I mean, there might be a chance that we might have to have an emergency meeting for something else, but that would not be for this. It would be for a
Yeah.
city
So,
project.
so we want a motion to review this in September, correct?
Yeah, or just a report on the status and the progress in September.
Right. Second,
second,
thank you, Bruce. Roll call,
So that is a motion to continue to our regularly scheduled September hearing. Roll call, Chairman Lazaris,
yes.
Vice Chairman Rizzo,
Yes.
Secretary Vivaldi,
Yes.
Commissioner Green,
yes.
Commissioner Comac,
yes.
and Commissioner Athos.
Yes.
All right, great. It is 8:18 and we are
Ooh.
adjourned.
Through the chair, Lucia, do you know the date in September, what day it is?
Off the top of my head, hold on. I think it's September 13th.
Okay.
Yeah,
All
it
right.
should be September 13 and it should already be on the city's website as deadlines and meeting dates and deadlines on the Concom page, but I'm almost certain it's the 13th.
All right, thank you much.
And we got stuff done, thank you.
Yes, thank
Um,
you.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
All right.
Good night.
Second.